but it looks like white is out of the woods. Parham blunders with rook takes b3, and his point is he wants to give a check, takes, bishop takes, and rook e1 mate. That's his plan. So the knight hanging, rook b1 check coming. We are on move 37. Nihal has 59 seconds to work this out.
It is round 7, FIDE Grand Swiss 2025. We are paired with Nihal Sarin of India and Parham Maghsoodloo of Iran. Both top GMs, both you could even say underrated. They're both 2690s at the time of the game, and both of them are fighters. They are fighting for top spots. They are fighting players. Their technique is insane. They don't hold back. They go all out. So crazy pairing. We all know we're going to see a big fight. Let's see what happened in this game then. Nihal Sarin of India has the white pieces, starts d4. Param goes d5, answers him, and Nihal Maghsoodloo enters with the Slav c6. We get knight c3, knight f6, and c takes on d. So exchanges in the center, c takes d, and bishop f4. As you can see, both players following some mainline theory here, knight c6, e3, bishop f5. And here we get knight f3, e6, and queen to b3. So pretty standard out of the opening here. As you can see, we are in mainline. This has been played at the highest levels, Aronian, Kramnik, So, Kiri, and very solid for both sides. Evaluation quite equal with the first couple of moves. Bishop to b4, we get knight to e5 jumping, taking some space, and black goes queen to b6. Maybe in the future trying to get maybe a queen trade, just going to a quiet game. It would be okay for a draw for both of them, as they would still maintain the lead after round 7, I think. Yeah, it would have been all right for both of them. F3 is the first inaccuracy here. But still in theory, and the idea after f3 is to build with g4, of course, makes sense, or maybe even e4. After that, we get castles by black, knight takes, pawn takes, and king f2 by Nihal. King f2 is to break the spin of the knight, the bishop here, checking out the knight. So king f2 breaks that, and maybe some deeper ideas later to bring the rook over, and so forth. So this might look a bit weird, guys, but it is safe given this position. We are taught to always castle as soon as possible, but there's no threat here. And this is actually a very classy move, because let's say you started with bishop e2, which is also fine. Black suddenly has knight h5 hitting here on you, and it's a bit awkward. Like, this is, of course, if you wanted to castle. If you castled now, not really good. You're actually losing straight out because knight takes. If you go pawn takes, look at this. Queen takes d5. Good night. Your pieces are hanging all over. Sorry, I'm lagging a bit here, guys. King h1 and rook b8. There's big attacks. You are just very disjointed in your development. So this is why king f2 is better. King f2, we get knight to d7, and now knight to a4. Attacking the queen slides to a5. We get bishop to c7. Can you believe it? What a crazy move. Of course, if black takes on c7, you can just simply take here on b4, as the queen won't be defending the bishop anymore. So there we get this line that happens, and now e5. Parham strikes in the center. Both players have about 40 minutes left, very even, equal on the clock. If you can see the clock times there, 38 and 40 minutes. So a lot of time has now been spent in the early middle game. Rook to c1. Nihal just putting some pressure on c6. Rook coming to a half open file can never be bad. Okay. Parham goes rook f to e8, and now bishop to e2, also to bring in the rooks to connect both rooks. Who's messaging me? Okay. Rook to bishop to e2, as well now as rook to e6. After that, we get d takes e, rook a to e8, and queen to f4. Queen to f4, also just guarding the e5 pawn and just swinging the queen over, maybe looking for some attacking potential here. Okay, yeah, black should have maybe taken the pawn, just celebrated gaining the pawn back, and the game goes on. But instead, Parham goes bishop to g6, and we get rook h to d1. After rook h to d1, knight to e5 then. Engine is suggesting some deep moves here with king jumping to g1, but knight to c5 is natural as you're hitting the rook on e6. The rook moves then to e7. Better would have been rook to f6. You're just hitting the queen. The game goes on as usual. You have more play and more ideas. But now, after rook to e7, Nihal goes rook to c3 with a slight little advantage here. h5 and rook to d4. So you can see white's building. They are asking questions. Yes, it's still equal, but white's the one playing with initiative, developing their rooks. Their rooks are more active. Um, and there seems to be more clearer plans for white than for black in this position. We get a5, but Maghsoodloo playing it correctly. Now both players are in a time pressure. Guys, I want you to notice white's got 15 minutes, black's got 11 minutes, and it's only move 23. It's at move 40 when the time control is reached. So let's see what happens. We get a4, queen a7, maybe trying to eye making space for the rooks. Maybe the knight to jump over. We get h3 and queen to b6. Queen to b6, also just maybe directly trying to hit on b2. We get rook to d2, defending the b2 pawn. Queen goes back to a7. This was also maybe an invite to maybe repeat, to go for a draw. Rook d4, queen b6, and the repetition. But does not happen. We get queen to d4 then by Nihal, as well as now rook to b8 by Parham, hitting the b2. And now we get knight to e6. Look at that crazy move here. Of course, if you go knight to e6 and you capture, you can just pick up bishop, the knight there. So good technique there, guys, seeing the tactics. Of course, and if rook takes, well, you lose your queen, because now the rook, nothing's defending the queen. Also, if after knight here and you take here, it's quite simple. You just jump back with the knight, and suddenly white's got great positional advantage. Pieces are well connected. You see how the bar goes up. Yes, rook to b7, b3. Let's go rook b7, b3, and you are just defending perfectly fine. You are going to play for the win here with the central strikes here. Because the problem is you're playing f4, you're kicking the knight away, and then you're hitting the pawn on c6 twice. So that's the problem, and the whole position will fall apart. So after that 96, we get queen to b7, the knight drops to f5, f4, and rook b to e8. Now we're in move 30. So the blunders at this level tend to happen between move 30 and 40. Let's see what happens. b3 is played, considered inaccurate, not a big problem. Parham plays h4 correctly, and now queen to c5, queen to b8 then, and Parham captures that pawn on a5. Position is still equal. So now the mistake comes after knight to d7. The ending says you must go bishop to f5 and just continue playing the game. Like after queen to c5 and g5, of course. So that's why you make space for the bishop, for the pawn, by putting the bishop on f5, and then you're pushing the pawn down the board. So even being down a pawn, you have activity. But instead of that, we get knight to d7. And that seems to just be a free pawn, right? Is it? Nihal thinks it is. Because now if you take here, it's not that good. Rook takes on e3, and you're thinking, okay, it's equal, but not really, because that knight is unguarded. But Nihal doesn't find it. Now it's back to being equal. So we had to find this rook to c7 move, hitting here, and causing the queen to defend you and getting off this line. Because now after that, well, now you're in big trouble. Look there. That's trouble. The rook, this position just looks awkward. But that's not found. Instead, knight takes on g6. And now Parham finds a very important move of queen to g3 check. The king drops to f1. The game goes on. There's a forced draw actually. But before that, I want to show you why after king f1, this is not good, you just lose your queen. Or in fact, to go this way, it's also not good because you lose that pawn. The position suddenly opening up, the rook's hitting coming up. This bishop's going to activate, not immediately, of course, but let's say you go there, bye-bye knight, good night. See that knight being unguarded, so that mistake comes back to earlier with knight to d7. But Nihal didn't find rook c7. Didn't find rook c7. Parham goes queen to g3 check and king to f1. So here's the forced drawed line here. It's rook takes f3, g takes, queen takes h3, And now, as we see here, you just give the checks h1, f2, h2, etc., etc. That will be a draw by threefold repetition. The problem is, let's say you go here and you take with the bishop, right? You didn't checkmate because here the rook hits down here. GG's, back ranks, you are suffocated. But look at this queen here. I want you guys to notice the queen on a5 as we go on in the game's analysis. So instead of after king f1, Parham going for the win plays knight to f6. The position is still equal. Can you guys imagine? But look at the time pressure there. Parham has 53 seconds. Nihal has 1 minute 22. And there are still 5 moves to time control. After knight f6, we get rook takes f6. Nihal says, look here, I don't want that knight to come in anyway. I'm just going to give up my rook for it. And takes. But Nihal picks up another pawn here, right? So after that, instead of taking here, the big blunder happens with rook to b3. So the actual move that we should have played there, the good move was queen takes h4. The game just continues after queen d5, right? And then you go for rook c3, you're trying for the stuff. There's nothing much here, right? Even though, yes, black has got a rook, 2 rooks, and white's got a rook and a bishop, all these pawns does count in white's favor. I mean, there's connected pawns running. Position's quite solid for white, can defend it easily, because black doesn't really have any entrance here with this bishop and rook guarding and the queen being so close to help out in defense. But the problem is, instead of taking on h4, in severe time pressure, Parham goes rook takes b3, thinking, I have this hit here. Now, because let's say white played any other move, let's say here, right? There's this, here, and if bishop takes, it's the same sequence from earlier. You could even take with, give the checkmate this way. It would have been fine either way. But now, after rook b3, we see the crazy move, knight to f5. And suddenly you realize, oh no, this is not that good anymore. Because why? After rook d1 check, remember the queen on a5? There's rook d1, you take, if bishop takes, there's no checkmate. Why? Because there's a queen that will defend here. Suddenly you just look at plus 40 for white. It is over. So instead of all that, after knight f5, Parham sees this, of course, and goes queen to f4, trying to hit here. But Nihal, and also there, the knight and the rook, but Nihal just defends the knight and the rook by taking the queen with the pawn on d5 with the queen. So after rook to b1 is executed, you can just simply play king to f2. I think you could even go here if you really wanted to. It's not as good, I think, but it's still winning. But king to f2, just the best move. And suddenly there's no checks even for black. We get rook to e5, but now Nihal just seals it off with queen to d8. After queen to d8 check, king to h7, we get queen takes on f6. And he was in this position on move 42, just after reaching time control. The Maghsoodloo redesigned the game. Reason being, of course, after here, get this crazy move here, here, and of course, bishop d3. Look at that. That bishop diagonally skewering, hitting the queen and the rookie pookie pie. Of course, if you take here, takes, it's 4 versus 1 pawn endgame and rook. It's easily winning this for white. But I think even here, if you really wanted to, no, you can't do this, bro. You'd be lost. You need to get rid of the rook first. So yeah, be careful. That looks tempting to go bishop d3 immediately, but doesn't work. After this, of course, this is over. There's nothing you can do really to stop it. You have to take. I mean, even if you tried this, you take here, it doesn't do much. Yeah, you're still down 3 points. So yeah, that's it, guys. What a crazy game. Let me know in the comments what you thought of it. What a tactical game. Really, really full of surprises, guys. Good game indeed. If you guys enjoyed it, please consider hitting the like button, guys, giving a sub. Your support, as usual, as always, does mean a lot to me. And let me know what video you want me to cover next, any topic, any games. I'll be happy to look at it. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day ahead. I'll see you soon. Bye.